Have you ever been told that once your hair follicles die, they are gone forever? It's one of the most common and discouraging beliefs people hear after the age of 50. Many individuals begin noticing thinning hair, widening parts, or receding hairlines, and they assume aging has permanently shut down their body's ability to grow healthy hair. But here's what most people don't realize. In many cases, hair follicles are not actually dead. They are biologically dormant, and that distinction changes everything. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Hair growth is controlled by microscopic organs in your skin called hair follicles. These follicles constantly cycle through three phases: growth, transition, and rest. But as we age, especially after 50, these cycles begin to slow down. The growth phase becomes shorter and the resting phase becomes longer. Over time, hairs become thinner, weaker, and grow more slowly. This process is known scientifically as follicular miniaturization. Research shows this is a major driver behind age-related hair thinning and androgenetic alopecia, the most common type of hair loss. The follicle shrinks gradually, producing finer and shorter hairs instead of thick, strong strands. Now here's the hopeful part. Emerging regenerative research suggests that in many cases, follicles don't disappear. Instead, they stop receiving the correct molecular signals from the body. Scientists now believe hair loss often results from disrupted communication between regenerative signaling pathways rather than complete follicle destruction. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your hair follicle is like a factory. When you're younger, the factory runs on full power. Strong supply chains, steady energy, and efficient production. But as metabolism slows, hormones shift, inflammation rises, and nutrient delivery weakens. The factory doesn't explode. It simply reduces output or temporarily shuts down. The structure is still there. The system just isn't receiving the right signals or resources to function. And this is why metabolic health, hormonal balance, nutrient sufficiency, and blood flow play such critical roles in hair regeneration, especially after midlife. What the research shows is that deficiencies in key micronutrients like vitamin D, iron, zinc, and B vitamins are strongly linked with increased hair thinning risk and impaired follicle maintenance. In many cases, correcting these imbalances can help support regrowth and follicle health. But here's where most people go wrong. They treat hair loss as a cosmetic issue rather than a biological signal. They focus on shampoos, oils, or surface-level treatments without addressing insulin resistance, liver health, chronic stress hormones, or inflammatory diet patterns that directly influence follicle function. And that's exactly what we're going to break down today. In this video, you'll learn the real science behind dead hair, how aging affects follicle biology, and most importantly, the evidence-based metabolic, nutritional, and lifestyle strategies that can help reactivate dormant follicles and improve hair density naturally. Because healthy hair is not just about appearance, it's often a reflection of your internal metabolic health, cellular energy, and longevity pathways. And once you understand the physiology behind it, you can begin working with your body instead of against it. If you care about aging stronger, preserving vitality, and optimizing your biology naturally, this topic is far more important than it might seem on the surface. Hair follicles are often described as dead, but biologically, that is rarely the full story. In most age-related hair thinning cases, follicles are not destroyed. They are inactive, shrunken, or stuck in a prolonged resting phase. Understanding this single concept can completely change how you approach hair regrowth after 50. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Hair follicles operate on a cycle known as the anagen phase, which is the active growth stage, the catagen phase, which is a short transition stage, and the telogen phase, which is the resting and shedding stage. When you're younger, about 85–90% of your hair follicles remain in the growth phase at any given time. But after age 50, that percentage can drop significantly. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your scalp is like farmland, and each follicle is a crop field. When conditions are ideal, good soil, water, sunlight, and nutrients, crops grow strong and dense. But if the environment weakens, the land doesn't disappear. The crops simply stop growing or grow thinner. The same principle applies to follicles. They shrink in size, produce weaker hair strands, and sometimes pause production completely. This process is scientifically known as follicular miniaturization. Dermatology research shows that in androgen-related and age-related hair thinning, follicles progressively shrink, but often remain structurally present beneath the scalp. Stem cells that support follicle regeneration can still exist even when visible hair growth declines. What changes is their activation signal. What the research shows is that hair follicle stem cells can remain intact even when hair growth slows, but aging affects the surrounding support cells that send regeneration signals. When those signals weaken, follicles remain dormant instead of growing new hair strands. This means that restoring proper signaling pathways may help reactivate follicles under the right conditions. Now, here's where metabolic health becomes critical. Hair follicles are among the fastest growing tissues in the body. That means they require constant energy, oxygen, and nutrient supply. If cellular energy production declines, especially mitochondrial energy production, follicles lose the ability to sustain long growth cycles. After 50, mitochondrial efficiency naturally declines. This reduces ATP production, which is the primary energy currency inside cells. Without sufficient energy, follicles shorten their growth phase and enter resting mode faster. That is one of the core biological reasons hair appears to thin with age. Another factor is reduced scalp microcirculation. Blood flow delivers oxygen, amino acids, vitamins, and minerals directly to follicle cells. Studies using scalp imaging show that areas with chronic hair thinning often have reduced vascular supply compared to areas with healthy hair growth. Improving circulation may therefore help improve follicle activation. So what can you actually do about this? First, support mitochondrial energy production through nutrition. Foods rich in polyphenols, such as berries, green tea, dark leafy greens, and extra virgin olive oil, have been shown to support mitochondrial function and reduce oxidative stress inside follicles. Second, improve scalp circulation naturally. Gentle scalp massage for 5 minutes daily has been shown in small clinical trials to increase hair thickness over time by stimulating dermal papilla cells and improving blood flow. Consistency matters more than pressure. Think of it as sending fresh nutrient delivery signals to dormant follicles. Third, prioritize protein intake. Hair is primarily made from keratin, which requires amino acids like cysteine, methionine, and lysine. Adults over 50 often underconsume protein, which can directly limit hair production. Many functional medicine experts recommend aiming for roughly 1.0–1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight daily for tissue maintenance and regeneration. Fourth, maintain healthy vitamin D levels. Vitamin D receptors play a direct role in follicle cycling and stem cell activation. Low vitamin D levels have been repeatedly associated with hair thinning patterns, especially in aging populations. The key point to remember is this. Hair follicles rarely disappear completely. More often, they are waiting for the right biological signals to restart production. If this insight is helping you see hair loss differently, consider subscribing. I share daily science-based strategies focused on helping your body regenerate, not just manage symptoms, because once you understand that follicles are often dormant rather than dead, you shift from feeling powerless to understanding that targeted metabolic and lifestyle changes may help bring those follicles back online. One of the most overlooked causes of hair thinning after age 50 is insulin resistance and blood sugar instability. Most people associate insulin with diabetes or weight gain, but very few realize how deeply it influences hair follicle survival and regeneration. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Hair follicles require a steady supply of glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, and oxygen to sustain the growth phase. Insulin plays a major role in controlling how these nutrients are delivered into cells. When insulin functions properly, it acts like a key that allows nutrients to enter follicle cells efficiently. But when insulin levels remain chronically elevated, which is extremely common after 50, cells gradually stop responding to insulin signals. This is known as insulin resistance. When that happens, nutrient delivery to follicles becomes impaired, inflammation increases, and hormone balance begins to shift in ways that accelerate follicle shrinkage. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine insulin as a delivery driver bringing supplies to your hair follicle factory. In a healthy metabolic system, deliveries arrive on schedule. But with insulin resistance, the driver keeps knocking on the door and the factory stops responding. Supplies start piling up outside while the factory inside begins running out of materials. Eventually, production slows down. Research shows insulin resistance is strongly associated with androgen-related hair thinning. Elevated insulin can increase activity of an enzyme called 5-alpha reductase, which converts testosterone into dihydrotestosterone, or DHT. DHT is known to bind to hair follicle receptors and accelerate follicular miniaturization in genetically susceptible individuals. This is one of the reasons metabolic dysfunction often overlaps with pattern hair thinning in both men and women. Insulin resistance also contributes to chronic low-grade inflammation and oxidative stress. Both of these processes damage follicle stem cells and shorten the anagen growth phase. When follicles repeatedly experience shortened growth cycles, hair gradually becomes thinner and weaker. What the research shows is that individuals with metabolic syndrome and poor glycemic control often experience higher rates of hair thinning compared to metabolically healthy individuals. Improving insulin sensitivity has been associated with improved tissue regeneration across multiple organ systems, including skin and hair follicles. So how do you restore insulin balance in a way that supports hair regrowth? The first and most powerful tool is stabilizing blood sugar through nutrition timing and food selection. Start by reducing frequent spikes in glucose and insulin. Highly refined carbohydrates, sugary beverages, and ultra-processed foods create rapid glucose spikes followed by insulin surges. Over time, this pattern accelerates insulin resistance. Instead, focus on meals built around protein, fiber, and healthy fats. These nutrients slow glucose absorption and create steadier insulin responses. For example, pairing carbohydrates with protein, like eggs with whole grains or chicken with vegetables, significantly reduces post-meal glucose spikes compared to carbohydrates alone. Second, consider time-restricted eating. Research suggests that compressing daily eating into a 10-12 hour window can improve insulin sensitivity and reduce metabolic stress. This does not require extreme fasting. Simply avoiding late-night eating and allowing your body an overnight metabolic reset can improve hormonal balance. Third, prioritize resistance training and muscle maintenance. Skeletal muscle is one of the body's largest glucose storage organs. Increasing muscle mass improves glucose disposal and reduces insulin resistance. Even moderate strength training 2 to 3 times per week has been shown to improve metabolic markers that influence tissue regeneration. Fourth, support liver health. The liver regulates glucose storage, hormone detoxification, and inflammatory signaling. Fatty liver disease, which affects a large percentage of adults over 50, is strongly linked with insulin resistance. Supporting liver health through reducing sugar intake, limiting alcohol, increasing cruciferous vegetables, and maintaining healthy weight can indirectly support follicle signaling. If this explanation is helping you connect metabolic health with hair biology, consider subscribing. I post daily content that helps you understand how internal physiology shapes external aging patterns. The key point to remember is this: hair follicles do not function in isolation. They respond to the same metabolic signals that regulate weight, energy, and longevity. When insulin signaling improves, nutrient delivery improves, inflammation declines, and hormonal balance stabilizes, all of which create a stronger biological environment for hair regrowth. And for many people after 50, improving insulin sensitivity becomes one of the most powerful foundational steps in restoring follicle vitality. Another major reason hair follicles lose their ability to regenerate after 50 is chronic inflammation and oxidative stress. These two biological processes quietly damage the scalp environment and interfere with the cellular communication required for healthy hair growth. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Inflammation is a natural immune response designed to protect and repair tissue. But when inflammation becomes chronic, which is extremely common in modern lifestyles, it begins to damage healthy cells instead of protecting them. Hair follicles are particularly sensitive because they rely on rapid cell division and precise stem cell signaling to maintain growth cycles. Oxidative stress works closely with inflammation. It occurs when unstable molecules called free radicals accumulate faster than your body can neutralize them. These free radicals damage DNA, proteins, and cell membranes, including those inside follicle stem cells. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your scalp is like a greenhouse growing delicate plants. Inflammation acts like a slow chemical leak in the greenhouse air, while oxidative stress is like constant exposure to harsh sunlight that burns plant tissue. Over time, even strong plants struggle to grow in that environment. The soil becomes damaged, and growth slows or stops altogether. Scientific research has shown that increased oxidative stress markers are found in individuals experiencing age-related hair thinning and androgenetic alopecia. Studies also suggest that inflammatory signaling can disrupt dermal papilla cells, which are responsible for controlling hair follicle growth and regeneration. Chronic inflammation is often driven by everyday lifestyle factors that people rarely connect to hair health. Diets high in refined sugar, processed seed oils, and ultra-processed foods increase inflammatory cytokines throughout the body. Poor gut health can also trigger systemic inflammation because the gut lining acts as a barrier between your immune system and external toxins. When the gut barrier becomes compromised, sometimes called increased intestinal permeability, inflammatory compounds can enter the bloodstream and affect tissues far beyond digestion, including skin and scalp follicles. Environmental stressors also contribute. Pollution, UV radiation, smoking exposure, and chronic psychological stress all increase oxidative stress levels that damage follicle cells over time. What the research shows is that diets rich in antioxidants and anti-inflammatory nutrients are associated with improved skin and follicle health. Nutrients like vitamin C, vitamin E, selenium, polyphenols, and omega-3 fatty acids help neutralize free radicals and reduce inflammatory signaling that disrupts hair cycling. So how can you create an anti-inflammatory environment that supports follicle regrowth? First, focus on building meals around whole, unprocessed foods. Deep-colored fruits and vegetables, such as blueberries, spinach, broccoli, and pomegranates, contain high concentrations of polyphenols and antioxidants that protect cellular DNA and mitochondrial function. Second, increase omega-3 fatty acid intake. Omega-3s help regulate inflammatory pathways and support scalp circulation. Fatty fish like salmon, sardines, and mackerel are among the most bioavailable sources. Plant-based options such as flax seeds and walnuts also provide anti-inflammatory benefits. Third, support gut health. Fermented foods like yogurt, kefir, kimchi, and sauerkraut help maintain beneficial gut bacteria that regulate immune balance and inflammation levels. Fiber-rich foods like legumes, oats, and vegetables feed beneficial microbes and strengthen the intestinal barrier. Fourth, reduce exposure to pro-inflammatory oils and processed foods. Diets high in industrial seed oils and refined carbohydrates have been linked with increased systemic inflammation. Replacing these with whole food fats like olive oil, avocado, and nuts can improve inflammatory balance. Fifth, protect your body from chronic stress. Elevated cortisol increases inflammatory signaling and directly disrupts hair follicle cycling. Simple practices such as daily walking, breathing exercises, sunlight exposure, and consistent sleep patterns help regulate stress hormone levels and improve regenerative signaling. If this information is helping you understand how internal inflammation affects external aging, consider subscribing. I share daily evidence-based strategies focused on reducing chronic inflammation and supporting natural tissue regeneration. The key point to remember is this: hair follicles thrive in a low inflammation, high nutrient, antioxidant-rich environment. When inflammation and oxidative stress are reduced, follicle stem cells receive stronger regeneration signals, growth cycles lengthen, and hair density can gradually improve. And for many people over 50, reducing inflammation is not just about hair. It is one of the most powerful ways to slow aging across the entire body. After age 50, one of the most powerful, and often underestimated, influences on hair density is hormonal balance. Hair follicles are extremely sensitive to hormonal signaling. Even small shifts in hormone levels can dramatically alter growth cycles, strand thickness, and follicle longevity. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Hair follicles contain receptors that respond to hormones such as estrogen, testosterone, thyroid hormones, and cortisol. These hormones act like biochemical messengers that tell follicles when to grow, when to rest, and how strong each hair strand should be. As we age, the balance between these hormones naturally begins to shift. In women, estrogen levels decline significantly during menopause. Estrogen helps prolong the anagen growth phase of hair and supports scalp circulation. When estrogen decreases, the growth phase shortens, hair strands become finer, and follicles become more sensitive to androgen hormones like testosterone and DHT. In men, testosterone levels gradually decline with age, but sensitivity to DHT can increase. DHT binds to receptors in hair follicles and can accelerate miniaturization in genetically susceptible individuals. However, DHT alone is rarely the full cause. The real issue often involves hormone imbalance combined with metabolic stress and inflammation. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of hormones as the management team inside a hair production company. When leadership is balanced, communication is clear, and production runs smoothly. But when one manager suddenly leaves or another becomes overly dominant, the system becomes disorganized. Production slows, errors increase, and output weakens. That's exactly what happens inside follicles during hormonal shifts. Thyroid hormones are another critical but frequently overlooked factor. The thyroid regulates metabolic speed, protein synthesis, and cellular oxygen use. When thyroid function declines, even mildly, follicles can shift prematurely into the resting phase. Research consistently shows that both hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism are associated with hair thinning patterns. Cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, also plays a major role. Chronic stress keeps cortisol levels elevated, which disrupts follicle stem cell activity and shortens growth cycles. Elevated cortisol can also increase inflammation and impair nutrient absorption, further weakening hair production. What the research shows is that individuals experiencing chronic hormonal imbalance often display shortened hair growth cycles and increased shedding. Restoring hormonal stability has been linked with improved follicle regeneration and hair density over time. So how can you support hormonal balance naturally? First, support adrenal health to regulate cortisol. Chronic sleep deprivation is one of the strongest drivers of cortisol imbalance. Aim for 7 to 8 hours of consistent sleep, ideally with exposure to morning sunlight to regulate circadian rhythms. Stable sleep patterns help normalize cortisol release and improve tissue repair processes. Second, maintain stable blood sugar levels, which we discussed earlier. Insulin resistance directly disrupts sex hormone balance by increasing androgen activity and reducing hormone-binding proteins. Stabilizing glucose is one of the most effective ways to support hormone equilibrium. Third, support thyroid function through adequate micronutrient intake. Iodine, selenium, zinc, and iron are essential for thyroid hormone production and conversion. Foods like seafood, eggs, Brazil nuts, and leafy greens help provide these nutrients naturally. Fourth, prioritize healthy fats. Hormones are built from cholesterol and fatty acid structures. Extremely low-fat diets can impair hormone production, including sources like olive oil, avocados, nuts, seeds, and fatty fish supports hormone synthesis and cell membrane integrity. Fifth, incorporate stress-regulating practices into daily life. Mindfulness breathing, moderate exercise, nature exposure, and social connection have all been shown to reduce chronic cortisol levels and improve hormonal balance. The most important takeaway is this: hair follicles are not just skin structures. They are hormone-responsive organs. When hormonal signaling is balanced, follicles receive clear instructions to grow strong, thick hair. But when hormonal communication becomes disrupted, follicles often shift into survival mode and reduce production. And for many individuals after 50, restoring hormone balance becomes one of the most transformative steps in supporting long-term hair regeneration. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Hair strands are primarily composed of a protein called keratin. Producing keratin requires specific amino acids, energy production, and enzymatic reactions that depend on micronutrients acting as biological cofactors. If these nutrients are missing, the follicle may still exist structurally, but it cannot efficiently produce strong hair fibers. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of your hair follicle like a construction site building a skyscraper. Protein provides the building blocks. Vitamins and minerals act like engineers, electricians, and supply coordinators. If even one team is missing, construction slows or stops. The structure becomes fragile and productivity declines. That is exactly how nutrient deficiencies affect follicle function. One of the most common deficiencies linked with hair thinning is iron. Iron plays a central role in oxygen transport through hemoglobin. Hair follicles require oxygen to support rapid cell division. Research has repeatedly shown that low iron stores, even without full anemia, are associated with increased hair shedding and reduced follicle activity, especially in postmenopausal women. Vitamin D is another essential regulator of follicle cycling. Vitamin D receptors help activate hair follicle stem cells and support the transition into the growth phase. Low vitamin D levels have been consistently associated with various forms of hair thinning, including age-related and autoimmune-related hair loss patterns. Zinc plays a major role in tissue repair, protein synthesis, and immune regulation around follicles. Zinc deficiency can impair keratin formation and increase inflammatory scalp conditions that disrupt growth cycles. B vitamins, particularly biotin, B12, and folate, support cellular energy production and DNA synthesis. These processes are essential for rapidly dividing follicle cells. While severe deficiencies are less common, suboptimal B vitamin levels can still weaken hair quality and growth speed. Protein intake itself is another overlooked issue. Adults over 50 often consume less protein due to appetite changes or dietary habits. Since hair follicles prioritize survival over cosmetic growth during protein shortages, hair thinning can occur even when other nutrients are adequate. What the research shows is that correcting nutrient deficiencies often improves hair density, strand thickness, and growth cycle stability. Nutritional interventions that restore iron, vitamin D, zinc, and protein balance have demonstrated measurable improvements in follicle health in multiple clinical observations. First, prioritize protein at every meal. Include sources such as eggs, fish, poultry, legumes, dairy, or high-quality plant protein combinations. Aim for balanced protein distribution throughout the day rather than consuming it in a single meal. This supports continuous amino acid delivery to follicles. Second, monitor iron status through laboratory testing when possible. Iron-rich foods include red meat, lentils, spinach, pumpkin seeds, and fortified grains. Pairing iron-rich foods with vitamin C sources like citrus or bell peppers improves absorption. Third, maintain optimal vitamin D levels through safe sunlight exposure and nutrient-dense foods such as fatty fish and egg yolks. In many individuals over 50, vitamin D supplementation may be required under medical guidance due to reduced skin synthesis capacity. Fourth, ensure adequate zinc intake through foods like shellfish, seeds, nuts, whole grains, and legumes. Zinc supports immune balance and follicle repair mechanisms. Fifth, include a wide spectrum of colorful vegetables and whole foods to supply B vitamins, antioxidants, and trace minerals required for cellular metabolism. If this information is helping you understand the biological connection between nutrition and tissue regeneration, consider subscribing. I share daily evidence-based strategies designed to help you nourish your body at the cellular level. The key message to remember is this: hair growth is one of the first processes your body slows down when nutrient reserves become limited. By restoring micronutrient balance and adequate protein intake, you send powerful biological signals that support follicle activation and sustained hair production. The The final major factor that determines whether hair follicles can reactivate after 50 is lifestyle signaling, especially sleep quality, stress regulation, physical circulation, and daily movement patterns. These signals act like biological instructions that tell your follicles whether your body is in repair mode or survival mode. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Hair growth is not a priority function. From a survival perspective, your body focuses first on organs like the brain, heart, and immune system. Hair follicles only receive growth signals when your body senses stability, safety, and sufficient energy reserves. When lifestyle stressors accumulate, your body shifts resources away from hair production. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your body is running a household budget. Essential expenses like electricity and food are paid first. Hair growth is like renovating the garden. It only happens when extra resources are available. If the household experiences financial stress, the garden maintenance gets postponed. That is exactly how your body prioritizes energy when sleep, stress, or circulation are compromised. Sleep is one of the most powerful regeneration signals in the entire body. During deep sleep, your body releases growth hormone, activates tissue repair pathways, and regulates cortisol rhythms. Hair follicles rely heavily on these nighttime repair signals. Studies show that chronic sleep deprivation increases inflammatory markers, disrupts hormone balance, and shortens hair growth cycles. Circadian rhythm disruption is another hidden contributor. When sleep and light exposure patterns become irregular, such as late-night screen exposure or inconsistent sleep schedules, melatonin production decreases. Melatonin is not only a sleep hormone, it also functions as a powerful antioxidant that protects follicle cells from oxidative damage. Chronic psychological stress is equally damaging. Elevated cortisol levels signal the body to conserve energy and reduce non-essential tissue growth. Cortisol can directly push follicles into the resting phase and increase shedding rates. Long-term stress exposure has been linked to increased hair thinning and delayed follicle regeneration. Physical circulation is another key factor. Hair follicles rely on tiny blood vessels that deliver oxygen and nutrients. As people age, microvascular circulation often declines due to reduced physical activity, vascular stiffness, and metabolic dysfunction. Reduced blood flow means follicles receive fewer regenerative resources. What the research shows is that improving sleep quality, stress regulation, and vascular health can significantly enhance tissue repair and stem cell activation across multiple body systems, including skin and scalp follicles. So how can you optimize these lifestyle signals for hair regrowth? First, protect your sleep environment. Aim for 7 to 8 hours of consistent sleep by maintaining a regular bedtime and wake time. Reduce artificial blue light exposure at least 1 hour before sleep. Evening dim lighting and morning sunlight exposure help stabilize circadian rhythms that regulate tissue repair hormones. Second, incorporate daily stress regulating practices. Even 10 minutes of controlled breathing, meditation, or slow walking can reduce cortisol levels and activate parasympathetic nervous system activity, the state responsible for cellular repair and regeneration. Third, improve scalp circulation through consistent movement. Regular cardiovascular exercise improves overall vascular health and nutrient delivery to peripheral tissues like the scalp. Even moderate walking for 30 minutes most days of the week has been shown to improve blood vessel function and oxygen delivery. Fourth, practice gentle scalp stimulation techniques. Manual scalp massage, microneedling under professional guidance, or low-level laser therapy have been studied for their ability to stimulate dermal papilla cells and improve follicle activation signals by increasing localized blood flow. If this is helping you understand how daily lifestyle choices influence biological aging, consider subscribing. I share daily science-based strategies designed to help you optimize longevity through simple, consistent habits. The most important insight to remember is this: hair follicles respond to your overall biological environment. When sleep improves, stress decreases, and circulation strengthens, follicles receive powerful signals that conditions are safe for growth. When these signals are missing, follicles conserve energy and remain dormant. And for many individuals over 50, improving lifestyle signaling becomes the final piece that allows all other nutritional and metabolic interventions to work effectively. If there is one message to take away from everything we discussed today, it's this: hair follicles are rarely truly dead. In most cases, they are biologically inactive, waiting for the right internal signals to restart growth. And once you understand the physiology behind hair thinning after 50, the entire conversation shifts from cosmetic frustration to metabolic and regenerative opportunity. Let's quickly recap what we uncovered. First, we learned that age-related hair loss often results from follicles entering a prolonged resting phase rather than disappearing. The follicle structure frequently remains intact, but its regenerative signals weaken over time. Second, we explored how insulin resistance and unstable blood sugar disrupt nutrient delivery and hormonal balance. When insulin signaling improves, follicles receive stronger metabolic support and improved growth potential. Third, we discussed how chronic inflammation and oxidative stress damage the scalp environment and follicle stem cells. Reducing inflammatory foods and increasing antioxidant intake creates a biological environment where regeneration becomes possible. Fourth, we examined hormonal balance. Shifts in estrogen, testosterone sensitivity, thyroid function, and cortisol levels all influence hair growth cycles. When hormones become more stable, follicles receive clearer growth instructions. Fifth, we covered the critical role of nutrient sufficiency. Hair follicles require protein, iron, vitamin D, zinc, B vitamins, and other micronutrients to sustain keratin production and cellular energy. When these nutrients are restored, follicles often regain functional strength. And finally, we explored how lifestyle signals, sleep quality, stress regulation, physical circulation, and daily movement act as powerful switches that either activate or suppress hair regeneration pathways. When you combine these 6 biological systems, you begin to see a powerful pattern. Hair health is not isolated from the rest of your body. It is a reflection of your metabolic strength, hormonal balance, inflammatory status, and cellular energy production. In many ways, your hair becomes a visible indicator of internal longevity pathways. And this is incredibly important because the same strategies that support follicle regrowth also support brain health, cardiovascular health, weight regulation, immune balance, and healthy aging overall. You don't have to implement everything at once. In fact, real biological change often begins with one consistent habit. Maybe it's improving your protein intake, maybe it's stabilizing your blood sugar, maybe it's protecting your sleep schedule or adding daily movement, maybe it's addressing micronutrient deficiencies or reducing inflammatory foods. Choose one strategy from today's discussion and apply it consistently for the next few weeks. Track how your body responds, not just your hair, but your energy, focus, and recovery as well. Hair regrowth is often a gradual signal that deeper metabolic repair is taking place. The goal is not chasing quick cosmetic fixes. The goal is rebuilding the internal environment where regeneration naturally occurs. If this video added value to your understanding of aging, metabolic health, and natural regeneration, consider liking the video and subscribing. You'll be joining a community focused on optimizing health, energy, and longevity using science-based, practical strategies. Because when you support your biology at the root level, your body has an incredible ability to repair, regenerate, and thrive at any age.